Do you have a message for Ben Shapiro and Mark Levin, who've been engaging with you quite extensively online? What would you say to them right now?
I'd say you can have all the ad hominem attacks you like. I've been trading ad hominem blows with people for about 40 years. I used to do it, Tucker, in my local pub in southern England and be regularly banned by the landlady Mary for getting too garrulous on a Friday night and and arguing too vehemently and getting too ad hominem. I'm more than broad-shouldered enough to deal with what comes out of Shapiro's mouth or Levin's mouth. I don't care. And I'm quite happy to trade those kind of blows, and I find it quite enjoyable, actually, which probably says a little about me. But the bottom line I would say to them is, you're not winning this, you're losing, and you've put all your cards on the belief that everybody else is going to agree with you, that if anyone criticizes the Israeli government, then they're Nazis or they are anti-Semitic or they hate Jewish people. And that has been one of the most insidious false claims widely repeated by people that follow the likes of Shapiro and Levin, certainly since October the 7th. And the idea that you cannot stand up to a government, even if it's a government you support, it's your own government in many cases, the idea that you can't criticize that government means you're not actually journalists. These people can't be journalists who look at these things with an open mind and have intellectual honesty about it. You are just partisan activists, and you're propagandists for a government that is making Israel increasingly globally unpopular. And so my message to them, not that they want to hear it or that they will listen to me, but my message to them is I'd stop the ad hominem attacks. Stop attacking people simply for doing their job as journalists in rightly holding Netanyahu and his government to proper account. And maybe you should start doing that too. You would be doing Israel a favor. You'd be doing Israelis a favor. You'd be doing the world's 15 million Jewish people a favor if you just got off this ridiculous propaganda wall that you've been perched on for all this time and actually started calling out what the rest of us can see is increasingly unconscionable action.
The Daily Wire is literally in the toilet. They had layoffs in May of 2026. They had layoffs. The Washington Post said it was about 13% layoffs for their staff. And Ben Shapiro himself has admitted that the revenue is down since 2024. So that should tell you you're on the wrong side of history, dude. The people in the United States, they're out on the Israeli government. And I feel like it's funny because I know it's not the people, but I feel like they're lumping the people in there as well because of all the stupid shit that Benjamin Netanyahu's doing. So the people are starting to be out on the people of Israel.
I've known you for so long, and I always have thought of you correctly, I think, as a very reasonable man, as pro-Israel. In fact, as basically a Zionist, a defender of Israel. And then I wake up and I read from Mark Levin that you're literally a Nazi. You're a member of something called the woke Reich. And I wonder where you went wrong. What happened? Are you taking money?
It was also news to me, Tucker, I have to say. No, it's not often you wake up and discover you are actually a member of Adolf Hitler's Nazi party, but that appears to be what Mark Levin thinks I am. Yeah, I mean, the guy, I don't really know Mark Levin. You know him better than I do. I've watched his work. He seems to resort to ad hominem attacks on anyone that dares stand up to this particular Israeli government, which I think is an interesting strategy because most people I talk to of any political persuasion right now are pretty critical of this Israeli government. And in the same way that Ben Shapiro and others have, I think, really caused themselves enormous reputational damage over this Iran war in particular, it comes down to their refusal to countenance any criticism of Benjamin Netanyahu, even when he's doing things which most people think are completely wrong. And I don't understand why they think that's a winning strategy. It seems from the dwindling viewers that both of them have, that viewers don't like it. I'm not quite sure who they're doing this for other than their own egos, but it's embarrassing. It's ridiculous. And obviously, I'm not a member of the Nazi Party and never have been. And I don't equate criticizing this very hardline Israeli government with, in my view, complete psychopaths like Ben-Gvir and Smodrich, saying and doing things which are utterly repellent. I just think the idea that criticism of that kind of thing, meaning that you become a member of the woke Reich, is patently ridiculous. Well, it's not just counterproductive; it's actually deeply offensive, because, as you rightly say, I have always supported Israel's right to exist as a basic right. I've always supported their right after October the 7th to defend themselves. I thought they had a moral public duty to their people to defend themselves after that appalling terrorist attack. But I also questioned quite early on whether their response was proportionate. And I continue to question the proportionality of Israel's response to all the threats that they face. And I don't say for a moment that Israel has not been threatened and doesn't remain threatened
Right.
by a variety of terrorist groups, from Hezbollah to the Houthis to Hamas, and the tentacles of Iran spread long to all those groups. I don't for any moment want to suggest that isn't happening or it's not a real thing. But how a country like Israel, which is, pretty much the superpower of the region, which has an extraordinarily powerful military, it's got itself into a really difficult place on this, where it is becoming increasingly a global pariah. And that's not your fault or my fault or Megyn Kelly's fault. But increasingly, I think it is a situation exacerbated by the likes of Ben Shapiro and Mark Levin, because they conflate legitimate criticism of the actions of a government with, in many cases, they spray gun people with the charge of anti-Semitism, or as we see now, well, you must be part of the woke Reich, which of course would be ridiculously ironic if that was the case, given what they think I'm about. So the whole thing to me seems completely absurd, dangerous, I think, for Israel and its reputation, dangerous for Jewish people around the world, many of whom have said to me they completely agree with my criticisms of this Israeli government. The conflation of criticism of any government with the people or the country, I think, is always absurd.
First of all, it's crazy how Mark Levin and Ben Shapiro, if you disagree with the Israel government, you're anti-Semitic. It's funny how that works. You can't have a disagreement about the war without these two clowns in there constantly spreading this bullshit. Food distribution centers, when they come and distribute the food, they're running to get the food, and then it's like target practice for them. People are seeing this shit online. Piers Morgan knows he's out on Trump. He may sometimes be in, but he's out. And so is Tucker. Tucker is completely out on this. They know this is a complete shit show. They know it. They can see it. It's complete shit show. But anyways, like, follow, subscribe, bang that notification. Let's go.